Stef Keator, C-TAGME, served as the GME Institutional Manager for Program Manager Development at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. In this role, she leads institutional efforts to support and empower program managers across residency and fellowship programs, with a focus on professional growth, operational excellence, and community building. Stef began her career in graduate medical education as a program coordinator for both the psychiatry residency and the Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Fellowship at Creighton. During this time, she helped lead the development and successful launch of Creighton's inaugural Rural Track Psychiatry Residency, designed to expand access to behavioral health care in Greater Nebraska. For the past 2 years, Stef has served on the advisory board for the Rural GME Administrators Network, where she contributes to national conversations around rural training and has presented as part of the Rural Administrators Fundamental Training Series. She has also shared her expertise at the AADPRT Conference for Psychiatry. So with that, Stef, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me today, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion about generational diversity in the workplace. And so I'm looking forward to this. I hope this will be interactive and it'll be more of a discussion than just listening to me talk. But looking at some of our objectives today, we really want to identify the generation that each of us fall into and kind of understand our own generation a little bit more. We'll do that through identifying the values, communication styles, and work expectations within each generation. And really the goal here is to just raise our own self-awareness, and hopefully something that we discuss today will spark at least some food for thought within your own mind, so that you can do a little self-reflection and see how we can be more self-aware in the workplace. And I'm going to be toggling back and forth today, which may be a little frustrating, but if you don't mind, if you would join me on Mentimeter by scanning this QR code. And you can scan the QR code, or you can use your phone to go to menti.com. And if you go to menti.com, you'll need this code up at the top of the screen here. So I'll go ahead and wait just a minute and we'll have a few people. Yeah, so good. People are getting logged in. That's great. And I don't know that we have too many on the call, so we'll give it just a minute here. Okay, so it looks like we have some millennials and some Gen Xers in the room. And we're going to toggle back and forth a couple times between Mentimeter, so just bear with me on that. Hold on for just a minute. I'm not in presenter mode anymore, am I?
No, it's showing the full slide, a full browser. There's it.
I've lost my presenter mode now. So sorry about that. So looking at the different generational groups, I think it's kind of fun to take a few minutes and really figure out who's in the workforce right now. And we're all either in Gen Y or Gen X here. So really Gen Z, I guess there is a Gen Alpha, which is the group that's younger than the Gen Zers. But if you're looking at that blue group, the Gen Z group, age 13 to 28, those are the people that are just entering the workforce, and you kind of spend a minute thinking about what these people have experienced in their lives. Some of them, 9/11, they did not experience 9/11. They did experience the big recession, which would have been in 2008, really that time period. And then they have experienced COVID right along with us. You look at the millennials, those are kind of identified in the workplace as the entrepreneurs and the people that are in tech. And then the Gen Xers, when you think about it, those are people who are right now between age 45 and age 60. Those are really the first generation of people where they were latchkey kids, the first generation where, women were really in the workforce and things were changing. And then we still do have baby boomers in the workplace. We still have people who, age 61 to 79. We don't probably have a lot of traditionalists still in the workplace, but it's interesting to take a look at those different categories and just to kind of reflect on what each of those categories have experienced in their lifetime to date. So thinking a little bit about the benefits of generational diversity in the workplace, this is something that's very interesting to think about. And when you look at the research, we find that generational diversity is actually beneficial in the workplace. It decreases employee turnover expense because you're retaining people. You're retaining people through to their retirement. And so you're not replacing employees all the time. It allows for knowledge sharing. And this is something that goes both ways. When you look at this little icon they've got for knowledge sharing, you see the brain going back and forth. So the more seasoned employee can add context for what's going on in the workplace. They can add historical background. And a lot of times the younger workforce can add more tech knowledge, more up-to-date, context for what's current. And so the back and forth really is the best model for the best return on investment is to have a diverse workforce, generationally diverse workforce. Let's go back to Mentimeter and let's talk about what do you personally value most in the workplace? And I'll give you that QR code one more time, just in case we lost it. You personally, what do you value most in the workplace? Okay, so if you've worked with word cloud, the more that something is entered, the bigger it gets. I don't know if anyone would feel comfortable chiming in. Would anyone want to unmute themselves and just talk for a minute about what trust looks like in the workplace? And anyone can speak up. I can't see participants' faces, so just go ahead and speak up. What does trust look like in the workplace?
I think for me, autonomy to do your job.
Okay, I like that. Autonomy. Okay. And someone else was speaking up too?
I was just going to say, feeling comfortable to bring concerns to your superior.
Okay. And that kind of lends itself to psychological safety, being free to speak up and free to, express. And then autonomy, really. So trust means different things to different people. That's good. I like clarifying that. What about open communication? What does that look like? And feel free to speak up.
Transparency.
Transparency is good. I think a lot in the workplace, we see a lot of issues with people with open communication. Sometimes people aren't clear as far as like, what are you working on? What am I working on? Where are you in the process? Where am I in the process? I think that's something that's really beneficial is keeping everyone informed in the process. All right, so those are some of our values. Which communication style do you prefer in the workplace? Face-to-face, email, text, or video? Okay. Great. We're going to go back to PowerPoint. And I'm going to apologize again because I don't see my bar for presenter mode here, and I do apologize. So thinking about the different styles of communication in the workplace, it seems like most of us in this group right now appreciate the face-to-face. Somebody appreciates email. This is an interesting topic because it really does impact the workplace. It really impacts communication in the workplace. So as a manager, personally, I'll tell you right now, I'm 54 years old. And so I really like using my desk phone. I like to just pick up my desk phone and call people. And I have 17 people that are in my group that report to me. And a lot of people have just reached out to me and said, Steph, I really don't like to talk on the phone. Are you comfortable texting? And so I have no problem adapting to that, but I did find it at first it was like, why wouldn't someone just pick up their phone? They're right there at their desk, And so it does require some adjustment and thinking about things from other people's perspectives. So fortunately, I do think it's great that people prefer face-to-face communication. Another option for face-to-face, now text can be very impersonal, but I think a lot of times people in different generations want to know, like, why are you calling me? Don't just cold call me. What is it that you're going to be saying? What's coming up here? Do I need to brace myself? I do think video conferencing is a great alternative when face-to-face doesn't work, because video conferencing is a way that you can pick up on the nuances. You can pick up on facial expressions. You can pick up on tone. Where I find I can get myself in trouble sometimes with texting because it's not as easy to convey tone, especially when you're from a different generation. So those are some things to consider. Now, other things to consider are different priorities within the work culture, different working style, and managing age differences. Let's go to working style, and I'd like to see if anyone would feel comfortable chiming in on working style. Can you think of some different generational nuances that come along with different styles of working?
Well, so I would say that some people have a very good work ethic, and some people struggle a little bit, especially the younger generation, because they just aren't. I don't know what, I guess I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but I noticed that it's almost like we don't expect as much out of the younger generation.
I'm glad you brought that up. One of the nuances that I really notice with working styles with different generations are that maybe in the older generations are more committed to a firm start time and a firm end time to the workday, where the younger generations are more comfortable with flexing or working remotely or adjusting hours, maybe for work-life balance. And so I think that is something that, even though it's so minor, what is your start time? What is your stop time? And how long do you take for a lunch break? If you're doing fantastic work and you're getting the job done, you are taking care of the things that fall in your purview, it doesn't necessarily matter what time you start and what time you stop. But to some people, that start time and that stop time and that lunch hour are really, really important. It's very important to them. So I think it's just good to consider all the different perspectives. Let's think now about priorities. How could priorities possibly change with different generations within the workplace? Can anyone think of an example of how different generations might have different priorities?
I can think of one example, maybe if people are in a meeting, there's some people that will like never check their phone. But then you'll see other people who will be checking their email on their phone or checking their text, but maybe it's because they're waiting for like a patient prescription or they just have different priorities. And you kind of have to just work with those people and just accept it. Like, hey, if their patient's calling them, they need to take a minute during this meeting.
Right.
Whereas some people don't think that way.
Right. That brings up such an interesting topic. I think the three best things to do are, to assume positive intent, which was that Amanda that just made that comment?
Yes.
Yeah. I think assuming positive intent, maybe they did have something urgent, maybe it's patient related, something like that. Assume positive intent. And then also, if it does become an issue, you can always seek to understand, and open up a conversation with the person. I noticed that you were on your phone during this meeting. Did you have something urgent going on? I think that's always a great approach. And then the third option, I think, is to set clear expectations. And I know within residency training, I know it can be a real big issue for faculty. A lot of times, if they're either presenting didactics live or presenting them virtually, there can be some triggers, and it can be really frustrating for faculty to present to a virtual room full of residents who have their camera off, and no one can even see, am I talking to the moon? Is anyone here? It also can be frustrating to be, we have people in our GMEC meetings, we've got a room full of 40 people trying to have this, follow Robert's Rules of Order and really have a productive GMEC meeting, and people are on their cell phone, and sometimes it almost looks like they're taking a selfie or something, during a GMEC meeting. And so I think, sometimes you do just have to set clear expectations and, politely set the ground rules at the beginning of the meeting. Almost like the intro slides that we had at the beginning of this meeting, if it is a continuing issue and it's, generational differences, it's fine to go ahead and set expectations. Okay, so I'd like to use this scenario. And since we are a small group today, let's go ahead and work through this just as a large group. And so let's talk about this scenario. I'll go ahead and read it, and then we can just kind of open the discussion. So a medical school is going to require all medical students to complete a community service project in order to be eligible for graduation. This project was not mentioned during the med school application process, but the faculty believes that this will be beneficial for the medical student education. So as a team, let's decide how soon this should be communicated to the students and in what manner it should be rolled out. So let's think ahead about the possible outcomes of the decision, both positive and negative. So just go ahead and speak right up. How would we roll this out?
Just on the subject of how soon it should be communicated, as soon as possible, I would say.
Okay, I agree, as soon as possible, for sure. And then in what manner should it be rolled out?
I'm guessing a conversational approach.
Okay, kind of describe that. Describe how you would let everyone know and then kind of talk through that.
Setting up a group meetup and just have each of the groups with a team lead from a faculty or somebody that is going to actually lead the group in a very conversational manner, just to also get feedback from the students, how they are also feeling towards the new developments and how they can move forward. And so the reception from the students will kind of gauge you to know how to proceed forward, I guess.
So do you think, thinking about conversational, do you think that this would be best face-to-face, or do you think it would be best on Zoom, like a video platform?
I would say it's better face to face or alternatively Zoom, but face to face is more to actually gauge the room and really see what's really going on.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you have the context of the fact that your audience is going to be medical students, then you kind of know what generation we're working with. I will be honest, I spent 5 years as a program manager for psychiatry. And if we would have had a situation like this in psychiatry, we did a lot of virtual. And this is in the context of residency. So, you've got residents off at their different sites here, there, and everywhere. It was very easy to call a quick meeting on Zoom. So probably if this was in my residency, I would probably default to Zoom just because it'd be an easier way to get people together. But what I would typically do is I would go ahead and put a calendar invite, and our residents were really good at checking their Outlook invites. So I would put a calendar invite. If it was for something like this, I would just put on there something really vague, like a program update mandatory meeting 1 p.m. because my goal was, I want everyone to see this and be shocked. I want everyone to see this and jump on and be terrified, because I want them to show up. So that was my tactic, for getting people. So anytime, if it was something softer, I would do like residency town hall mandatory. And so this went on for a couple years, and our residents came to me and said, Steph, we love you, but this is not psychologically safe. You are scaring us with these meetings, So you've got to give some sort of so I learned a lot that, to me, it was really effective to scare people into jumping on a Zoom, but to them it didn't feel good, and it wasn't necessary to be, all, mysterious and mandatory and all that. So I really did have to adjust. But I think you're very much right that a conversational approach would be the way to tackle this. Any other thoughts? And I'll just wait and give a little bit of awkward silence here if anyone has any other thoughts.
I had a thought, the point to accepting feedback, I think, is super important, since it says it was not mentioned during the application process. You might expect some people to have like a problem with it. So I think getting that feedback and being flexible with and ready to like take their feedback is important.
That is such a good point. I think being comfortable with receiving negative feedback is so important. We want the residents to do it. We want them to be wide open to feedback. And I think the only way to model that as support people, and as you know, supporting them through the program, as faculty, as administrators, is for us to get real comfortable with receiving feedback ourselves. And if possible, to thank them for the feedback. And if possible, to tell them, that going forward, you'll really keep that in consideration. That is amazing. Okay, another scenario here. And thank you so much for jumping in. It really helps when everyone participates. So thank you guys for your input. Okay, as a new program director, I was informed by the program administrator that an intern expressed concerns regarding their interactions with a tenured faculty member during morning report. According to the intern, the faculty member was perceived as being mean during the session. The situation occurred when the intern presented a patient case without obtaining a full history. When questioned about their preparation and whether they had completed the assigned reading material for the rotation, the intern acknowledged that they had not. The faculty member responded by stating that during their own training, such a lack of preparation would have been considered unacceptable and might have resulted in dismissal from the session. The faculty member then exited the interaction. Following the encounter, the intern reportedly shared with peers that the faculty member is not a good teacher and that they felt they were being singled out or unfairly targeted. As a team, let's decide how the program should address professionalism in this scenario and what challenges might you have that are generational and not professionalism. So anybody go ahead and chime in on this one.
Okay, I can take that. So for me, I think that the faculty member shouldn't have stated what happened in their own time, because that's his or her own experience, and so pretty much bringing into that intent was just not the most ideal way to move things forward, because normally on a normal day, most interns are hoping to get into a camaraderie kind of atmosphere to actually foster learning. That's actually why they are there. They are there to learn. If they know it all, they won't be there in the first place. So if they are there to learn, it means that the environment should actually be in a camaraderie sort of to foster things forward. So I feel that sentence, something is wrong with that sentence for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel that the best way for the faculty member to have actually addressed this was for the fact the intern acknowledged they did not read the material. That shows honesty. If someone is honest to you, this is because honesty is not, a lot of people are not honest, but if you meet someone that's genuinely honest, that should let you know that this person maybe has some things going on or something, and they're actually coming up front to you, letting you know, I didn't do this. Because with this kind of approach, you are going to make the intern to lie the next time, which is not something you want for that intern at all. So for the fact the intern said, I did not, you could actually, through an open question, I felt like maybe the faculty member can, say something like, is there something you would like to share or something, just to make the intern really feel open to give any other information they feel comfortable sharing. I think that's a better approach to actually deal with the situation.
That's really good. And even just the fact that the faculty member exited at the end, they just like kind of stated their point and left the room. Yeah. Okay, let's kind of tease out the next part about the intern sharing with peers that the faculty is not a good teacher. Let's think about that a little bit.
Sorry, Steph. My internet cut out a little bit. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I just was going to say, let's talk a little bit about, the fact that following the encounter, the intern started talking to their peers and telling them that the faculty was not a good teacher.
Well, that seems like a lateral move instead of going to the proper chain of command. Yeah, it seems like maybe they were trying to maybe start something or make things more difficult all the way around instead of just having an honest conversation.
Right. Okay, so how should the program address professionalism in this scenario?
I feel like they should address it aggressively and address it immediately and talk to the intern about being mature and professional.
And what about the faculty? Should anyone talk to the faculty?
Well, I think that's totally appropriate if it's handled in a professional way. Like, hey, you may not have intended this to come across this way, but the perception was blah blah blah, and then
Right.
couch it in a little bit more objective way.
Right. And I almost think that same approach could be taken with the intern, you probably didn't mean to undermine this faculty, but that could be how it's perceived, that you're undermining them. Okay.
I had a thought too, because I'm wondering why the intern, was sharing with the peers. Maybe they're wondering, like, am I the only one? Like, has anyone else had problems with this same faculty? And I think if the program is gonna address professionalism, maybe if there's like a hotline or like a person to refer to about these types of issues, just helping to share that knowledge as well, I think, because just so they know how to report correctly.
Yes. I can think of an extreme example that we had within our institution of this scenario really going to an extreme with the faculty member. And I mean, physicians who have been in practice for many, many years remember the old days of, um, residents and medical students being targeted on morning rounds, with difficult questions and, just kind of being singled out and called out. And that was a very common practice, and you were prepared for it, in the older day, in bygone days or whatever. You were prepared for that kind of treatment. People today are not. So our institution has a confidential QR code that we use for reporting, and it's posted everywhere. It's in every resident team room. It's in our lunch rooms. It's in our administrative offices. It's everywhere. And so that is a confidential QR reporting code that goes straight to the DIO. And people do use it. They do use it, and it's very interesting what they will use it for. But it's kind of sounds like that is what you were referring to, a way to, reach out if there is something you don't feel comfortable talking about. And really, when people use that confidential QR code, it is kind of a cry for help, but our DIO takes those very seriously. And sometimes that's the only option people feel like they have. They don't feel safe speaking up or whatever. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can, here we go. Thank you. I should have just done this long ago. I'm gonna just make another attempt here. I'm so sorry. I should have done that long ago. So I think we're gonna move on to a video here. So let me know right away if you have any trouble hearing the video, but I think it should be set up properly.
So, my impression is that this is a 16-year-old girl with abdominal pain.
Is she sexually active?
Oh, I forgot to ask her that.
Well, you should have asked her that. You should always ask that. Now, does she have dysuria? Does she have urinary frequency, urgency, hesitancy? You see where I'm going with this? Because she could have a urinary tract infection, okay?
Okay, I'll try to remember to ask that next time.
When was her last menstrual period?
I don't know. I'm sorry. Do you want me to go ask her now?
No, that's okay. We'll talk with her about that in a minute.
Supposing she is pregnant, how soon after getting pregnant would the pregnancy test come back positive?
What have you learned about that this year?
Well, I know there are different tests. There are blood tests, there are urine tests, but I don't know the specific answer to that.
Well, let's go see the patient, and then afterwards we'll spend a couple of minutes talking about pregnancy tests.
Okay. Thoughts on that interaction and maybe what went right, what went wrong? Any thoughts? I think what went right is that at least they kept the conversation rolling. You know, they were able to move through this awkward interaction and get in there to go see the patient. I think what went wrong is that, you know, the faculty was not very welcoming in their guidance through that conversation. All right, let's take a look at another video.
My impression is that this is a 16-year-old girl with abdominal pain.
Good. So what do you think is going on with this patient?
Well, maybe she has an ulcer.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about why you're thinking that.
I don't know. I mean, ulcers happen a lot. I don't know if teenagers really get them, but I was thinking they could.
It's good you're considering peptic ulcer disease in your differential, because sometimes that does get missed in adolescence. Maybe after we're done, you can go online and look up some abdominal pain differentials in adolescents, and we can talk about that when you're done. Meanwhile, I think we should consider some other possibly more common differentials in this patient, like pregnancy.
Yes, I totally forgot to ask her about that. She didn't bring it up either.
It's important to remember that sometimes teens feel uncomfortable talking about sexuality issues. So let's go talk with her together, and we can also check a pregnancy test. Any questions before we go in and talk?
Nope.
Okay, how did the two compare?
The second one, the coaching was a little bit more, it was probably received a lot better.
Much more open.
Yeah,
Right.
it was more of almost a motivational interviewing approach too in the second one, where you had the lead pretty much being like, all right, so tell me, why do you think that? You know, and yeah, I feel like there was more of that in that second one.
Exactly. Much more comfortable. I felt more comfortable in the second interaction. Okay.
Steph, a couple phrases that I've picked up along the way, if you're trying to have those types of conversations, if you lead in with, I'm confused by, or can you help me understand, you know, where this is coming from or your perspective, then you're kind of doing a one-downmanship. So it gives them the potential to respond in a way that is not threatening.
Right, exactly. Tell me a little bit more about, or yeah, I like that. Okay, let's go back to our Mentimeter slides. And I'll give you the QR code again. And this is a much more broad question. What do you value most in life? Okay. I love this. This is so telling. This is so telling. So we do have happiness and family that got a little bit bigger as time went on. That's because more than one person said family and more than one person said happiness. But look at the diversity of people's values, their children, honesty and authenticity and integrity. There's a little bit of a theme there. Honesty, authenticity, integrity. But then faith, that might be really valuable to one person and not even show up on another person's radar. Connection is kind of an all on its own. Fulfillment and happiness, I could see those kind of going together, but we have such diverse values as people. And so understanding people's generational, categories is one thing, but just understanding who people are is really so important. What do people value? Okay, let's try some fun questions here to try to see where we are generationally. So fill in the blanks. What's the ending to this phrase? Do you know the way to... Fill in the blanks if you know it. Okay. So we're all kind of in the generational zone where we at least know, is this a song? I think this is a song.
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah. And I figured that the person who said Santa Fe meant San Jose. All right, so we all kind of know what's going on there. Because we're all kind of in the same generational zone. Okay, who did Dolly Parton beg not to take her man? All right. There we go. That's the full song right there. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Love it. Who was Bella's true love? Bonus points if you know the first and last name without Googling it, right? Ooh, somebody wins. Wow. And this is one that before I had to Google this. I didn't know. I don't think I've ever seen the show. What's the name of the show?
It's a book. It's
what was it?
Twilight.
Twilight. Yeah, and I had never seen this one. Yep. And it's not because of generational, it's just because it wasn't in my vampire wasn't in my genre. Okay, who co-starred in Rhapsody with Vittorio Gassman? Anyone? Okay, I don't know if that's true because I didn't know this one at all. Oh gosh, I think I really literally had to look up the answer. Let's see. I'll tell you the answer to this one. This was a 1954 film starring Elizabeth Taylor and Vittorio Gassman. So, never heard of it. Okay, so that one's too early for most of us. All right, Robert Van Winkle is the real name of, sorry for my typo there, which rapper? Which rapper's real name is Robert Van Winkle? Somebody knew. I did not know that. I had to look that one up too. And I don't think of myself as a pop, totally unaware of pop music, but I did not know. All right, I think we have one more here. Who played Ariel in the live action version of The Little Mermaid? Who played Ariel in the live action version of The Little Mermaid? I'll give you a hint. It came out in, somebody knew. It came out in 2023. Never even knew there was a live action version of The Little Mermaid. So interesting. Some things, yeah, it's very niche. It's not just your generation, but sometimes it's just what you're interested in. Sometimes it's your values that affect it just as much, you know? Okay, we've got one more video here.
So you're on Facebook, huh?
Well, I've been trying to figure it out. I joined about 10 minutes ago.
Well, better late than never. You want some help?
I'd love some, but really, you've got better things to do.
No, I need a diversion. You have a photo of yourself?
No, I need one.
If you want to look up all those hotties from high school, you do. Say cheese.
Cheese.
That's cute. Okay, I just need to send that to you. All right, so there are all these questions for your profile that you can answer if you want to or not, like religious views, political views, people who inspire you.
Jules Austin. I'm not trying to brown nose you, but I've been in business a long time, and I've never run across anyone quite like you. You do inspire, Jules.
I just knew at the end of the day that a woman with a glass of wine and a laptop had real shopping potential. You have a favorite quote?
I do. You're never wrong to do the right thing.
Who said that, you?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Mark Twain said it first.
All right, bringing it back to the whole group, what did we see going on in that video? Just kind of describe it and think how it relates to generational interaction.
I think there was a level.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think there's a level of understanding there, of trying to understand anyway. So, for instance, with the picture, it's like, oh, do I need it? And it's like, yeah, if you want the hotties, right? Something like that. But I think that's kind of a fun way of addressing it versus like, oh, this is the way we do things now. You post a picture to be seen, to have a face, online.
Exactly. Anybody else?
Yeah, older adults, it seems like, are a little intimidated by technology, and rightfully so. I think that's been the case for, generations. New thing comes out and they're like afraid of it and don't want to mess with it, or they need a lot of help to get going with it.
I feel like she was so warm though and inviting, and drawing him into it. So, I think it's a perfect picture of intergenerational interaction, to just gently draw people in.
I think it makes me think of like the knowledge exchange that you explained in the beginning, because she's teaching him about Facebook and he's like, yeah, I said it, but Mark Twain said it first, like kind of a, knowledge sharing.
Right. Can anyone think of an example from your own experience that you've had that really stands out as a generational experience, like an intergenerational interaction, either positive or negative?
Well, back in the day when computer games first came out, they had a disc you could put in and do like Wheel of Fortune. And my grandmother, who was like around 80 at the time, she loved Wheel of Fortune, was really good at it. So she would sit on the piano bench next to me while I had the computer pulled up, and she would guess, but she wouldn't touch the computer at all.
I love it. Well, I'll share a negative intergenerational experience I had. So a few years ago, our psychiatry residency was really wanting to beef up recruitment, and we became really aware that candidates are looking at Instagram. Like they want to see what the program's doing. They want to be able to check out the Instagram page and see what's current, what's happening in the residency. So I decided to just make myself I'll start the Instagram page, no problem. So I started it. Nobody really said anything. All of the residents joined it. They would always like things. And So the first year that we matched came up. I should pull this up and show it to you, but I won't. The first year that we matched came up. So I went on Canva and I made a little, here's the headshots of all of our new 8 interns and everything. And again, people are just fumbling along with me, liking my posts, not saying anything. So the second year of Instagram came around with recruitment, and our 2 chief residents came to me and they said, "Hey, Steph, we went on the Canva account and we already made like a stock, like ready for you to plug in the headshots. We created like the whole entire post for you. So all you have to do is put the headshots in." And I was like, "That's so nice of you guys. Thank you so much." And then they kind of awkwardly said, "Yeah, the one last year was real bad." And so it was just like, when I did it, I actually thought it was cute and I thought I was rocking it, but what they put together looked professional. I mean, it looked like, and they used the same Canva account that I had used. So I just think the more we can embrace the generations and the more we can laugh at ourselves and just be open to feedback, the better off we will all be. So any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
Someone had just left the chat, Steph, and just said, "Thank you so much for having me. I'll be stepping out to join another session. I had a great time here." Just wanted to read that out for you.
Great, super. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for participating today.
Yes, thank you. I had a great time and it was really informative and very fun. Thank you.
You bet.
And with that, thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you, Steph, for presenting and stepping in there.
Thanks so much.